Tonight, the CEOs of Twitter and Facebook are standing by their companies' efforts to prevent the spread of election disinformation. But during their testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee today, senators of both parties compared the tech giants to robber barons of long ago.
Mr. Zuckerberg and Mr. Dorsey, you have built terrifying tools of persuasion and manipulation with power far exceeding the robber barons of the last Gilded Age. And you have an immense civic and moral responsibility to ensure these instruments of influence do not irreparably harm our country.
Republican Senator Josh Hawley said the tech giants' behavior was predictable and unacceptable.
The robber barons got together and they set rates, they set prices, they determined how they would control information flow, they determined how they get rid of competition. And I'll be darned if we aren't right back there again. Except for this time, you're the robber barons. Your companies are the most powerful companies in the world. And I want to talk about how you're coordinating together to control information.
Senator Hawley asked Facebook CEO if Facebook, Google, and Twitter moderate content together. Mark Zuckerberg said coordination was normal. The pro-life Susan B. Anthony list says election ads they ran in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin targeting the pro-abortion records of Democrats Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were banned on Facebook based on a third-party fact check that was later retracted. Another item of note from today's Senate hearing, both Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg say they have strong programs in place to protect their platforms from being used to disseminate falsehoods or discourage people from voting in the upcoming runoff elections in Georgia. Those runoff elections could determine which party controls the U.S. Senate. Joining me now on Skype is Christopher Bedford, senior editor for the Federalist. Chris, welcome back. Always great to speak with you. The Georgia special elections are taking on national importance, given the stakes for control of the Senate. As we mentioned, the CEOs of social media platforms, Twitter and Facebook, say they have strong programs in place to protect their platforms from being used to disseminate falsehoods or discourage people from voting in the Georgia elections. What are your thoughts on this, Chris?
I was largely dissatisfied at the results of the hearing today, and I think a lot of other viewers were as well. There was a lot of answer dodging and kind of more of what we already know. We got commitments from Zuckerberg and from Jack Dorsey that they were going to continue with the program that they've brought in for the election, which is basically labeling all information about elections, especially from socials like President Trump, as contested information or information that's up in the air, regardless of how straightforward it is, basically casting a wide net. And they're going to continue doing that along with an ad blackout. The ad blackout can be difficult for conservatives and Republicans because, at least by users, Facebook, for example, is the most conservative user base of any of the tech platforms. And campaigns, especially smaller ones with less money than the Georgia Senate races, had originally banked on being able to take out ads and reach their voters that way. But as far as clamping down on disinformation goes, I think one of the most concerning aspects of the hearing today was Chris Coons is pushing on whether or not they're going to do fact-check censorship on climate change posts, which is basically pushing back against climate change paranoia on the same level as Holocaust denial. And that's just the beginning of where this disinformation campaign is going to go. And Democrats came out wanting more control and more clamping down.
Chris, I want to turn to the presidential election now. Presumptive President-elect Joe Biden issued some dire warnings yesterday about what we could see if there are further delays in a coordinated transition. This, as we see a number of states returning to various stages of lockdowns due to an increase in COVID-19 cases. I want to get your reaction to his statement and what we're seeing across the country right now.
Well, we haven't really seen that much in terms of a solid plan from Joe Biden other than telling everyone to wear masks. And what's going to eventually come across is a battle between the states and the federal government on whether or not more Republican states should lock down. The Democratic states seem completely in lockstep with anything that he would propose. California returning to new lockdowns. A number of these states, New York City returning to new lockdowns, Washington, D.C. on the cusp of doing so, and Maryland as well. This is a disaster for businesses. There's not going to be a national plan. Democrats over the last few months, Democratic governors and mayors have laid the groundwork for resistance to Washington, D.C. policies when they were against Donald Trump. I think we'll see a shift in media and we'll see a shift in the partisanship supporting that kind of measures. It's going to go from something that's patriotic right now under Trump to near sedition when Republicans are resisting a Democrat, according to a lot of the media sources. But so far, I haven't seen much in the realm of how Joe Biden's going to handle this beyond simply tisk-tisking, fighting with governors, and mask mandates.
Chris, we don't have a lot of time left, but I do want to get to this last question. We learned today that the president has ordered the Pentagon to cut the number of troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. Some members of the military, though, have expressed concerns that conditions on the ground do not warrant a further drawdown. Do you think that is a valid concern? And also, what's your take on this move by the president? How significant do you think it is?
President Trump's been pushing for this for his entire time in office, essentially. He campaigned on it. It's been a push of his, and he's been resisted every step of the way by generals and civilian leaders and Republicans and Democrats who think that 20 years is not long enough for them to have lost a war. It seems a lot of the American voters back this thing. It's something that I think President Trump is morally right on. I have friends who have fought in Afghanistan, whose children have since fought in Afghanistan. And it's gone on a long time, but there's going to be a lot of resistance. As soon as Esper was fired, Secretary of Defense, our feeling was that this was over, this fight. McConnell's against him, and a lot of the Republicans are against him. So he's facing an uphill battle on this one. And I wouldn't bet too strongly on him being successful, even if he's able to pull more troops out.
Okay, Chris, thanks so much. We always appreciate your analysis. Christopher Bedford, senior editor for The Federalist. Thanks again.
Thank you.